Hello and welcome to our 8th monthly Zoom meeting. This meeting will consist of two different parts. Later, I'll say congratulations to those who has just accomplished our Iconographers course. We spent long months filming it, and those who started this course also spent a long time accomplishing all the assignments. We are very happy with the results, and I'll make some comments on the knowledge and skills acquired at the course. But first, I want to discuss an image. Well, I'll first show you some different image, just as an introduction. But later, I'd like to speak with you as with professionals from point of view of art. What would be your not appreciation, not neither critique, but how would you describe, certain qualities of this image? Let me open my special folder, just a second. Yes, here it is. So I'm ready. And I think that it's not a secret that many people in the world think that iconography is such a craft as many other crafts where we restore something or reconstruct something of the past, which is being created and now can be just brought back. So we carefully look at a photograph of original object and we try to make what we are doing the very best possible way, restoring it how it can serve for the future and make our images look like new. So make our old images look like new. And I will start with this picture, which may probably seem strange, but yet in our technical age, people are coming and coming. Okay, then I will just say welcome to those who is joining us right now. And we begin seeing certain things, thinking of iconography as a craftsmanship where we supposedly work with old things, thinking that we may restore them, try to bring them back, the look they had years or centuries ago. So in our technical time, we may think of this object as deserving a better look, and we bring it back. So we try to make it look normal, even though in our Australian Zoom, a gentleman who participated in Zoom immediately told me, you know what, this mesh is not the original, so it's a wrong restoration. Okay, anyway, even in craftsmanship, we can easily bring to evidence the mistakes, but what happens with art? And with art, unfortunately, this doesn't work at all because of technology, which is so different. So here we can guess like, okay, there was a piece of steel, it was elaborated this way and that way, was colored this way and polished this way. If we are restorers of iconography, it's something similar we would do. We just refill the pieces which are missing. But if we paint a new icon, we can't just restore it. We are forced to make choices according to what our eyes tell us. And I will make you now this simple example with an image I wanted you to, speak of, to discuss with me, which came up on some social media. And this is an example of ancient fabric, which one may consider older or newer, but yet we see it's a work of some artist who decided to find some placement for the details, colors, etc. Next to this photograph, we see this post of someone, and we see this thing, which supposedly is a reconstruction of the piece. So technically thinking, this person said, okay, I'm so much inspired by the old piece, I want a new one, and I want it to look like the old one, supposedly. But when I see this, I can't even believe it has something to do with the old one. Because for me, The difference is, well, differences are drastic and substantial. So now my question would be to you as artists, as professionals, as people who think visually, whatever, there are no wrong answers anyway. What do you think can be the description, how we can define how these two pieces are different? Okay, we spoke about colors. They are too bright on the right. They are more moderate on the left. This probably is not the main issue, I would say, or it's too evident to be spoken about. What, as artist, would you say that you would have done differently, maybe? Do you have any thoughts? I'd be happy to hear you. I don't know. Deborah, welcome to our Zoom. Everybody else who'd like to say a word? How we describe the difference or different sets?
Okay, for me to go?
Sure. Yes, I'm here.
Well, the difference I see is that the design is woven into the older fabric. The design is constructed into the fabric. And the one on the right looks to be just printed over top of some fabric. So it's
Technology, okay.
integral difference between how it was built. It's
Sure.
That's what jumps out at me.
Okay. But from point of view of art, I see there is Kelly raising her hand. Yes, please.
Can you
Sure.
hear me?
Yes. You're live.
This on the left is a woven, and on the right, I believe it's printed.
Yeah, that's what Anna just said.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what Anna said, but I
Technology.
think, yeah, right. So it's they're both probably done on looms. One looks like an older, the left looks like hand produced, and the other one looks more like manufactured.
Okay. Yes, that's a good notice. Yes, that's important. The one on the left looks much more handmade and gives a living feeling, I don't know, sensation of some real hand, human hand. Okay, any more thoughts? Deborah, sure.
Well, what I'm struggling with is the close-up of the fabric and the more distant with the pattern. So it's got two different, when you just look at it visually, they're just very different. And the woven obvious one that's close, you're seeing it more intimately, but it's also the colors are not as jarring. They're gentle. It's a softer look, and just proportions seem a little different for some reason, but it's hard to tell when you don't have the same ratio with each one. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. Well, I'd like to hear Sarah, and then I probably will ask you to continue a couple of thoughts, to continue your actual thought, but to have it more extensive. Sarah, you were, I know.
Oh, sure. I was thinking that my attraction to the older one is the signs of use that we see, that it shows that humans have used it for a long time. You know, the fading, even the whites are probably dirty, and things like that, that the newer one, you don't see those signs. I know that's not maybe quite an artistic answer, but sometimes I think of that when I see icons. I like to see the signs of use. You know, some of the older icons, you can see where people have been handling them, or, you know, burning incense around them, or even the varnish is fading and things like that.
Okay, well, yes, having it a hand-produced object and having it being worn out with time, maybe bleached by sun, maybe having lost color or straight texture. Okay, Deborah, I wish to return a little bit. Well, I'll just a second. We thought about speaking with Deborah a little bit more, and then I'd be happy to hear you. So you mentioned about the size. What exactly would you mean by giving this size option?
Well, you know, both are photographs. And so one is a close-up photograph and the other one is a farther away, first of all. And then, I mean, I wonder if you took that one on the left and twisted it, how you would see. But then what I'm also seeing that is the charm, and I think you would probably say the same, Philip, it's not perfect. It's got little flecks of imperfection because of the weaving. And it has more of organic feeling than almost machine made and perfect.
Beautiful word, organic feeling. I'll be using it. Thank you for this. It will be quotation. Okay, well, we are close to something, but I have another thought. If you may probably notice something. Okay, Ala, you were wishing to say something?
Almost the same that it was already announced. So this fabric from the left side, and because it was woven, the thread is not regular, the same size, and this irregular thread are combined with this the same pattern, makes very interesting result, and rough surface and texture, and yes, colors that are made with probably some, like many years ago, dyeing stuff. So this is like the artist who created it, is like understand what he's doing. Okay, I have this material, I can do this, and this is an inspiration that he gets from the fabric that he is working with and the pigments that he is working with. So this is pretty deep. Another is also very beautiful, but this is totally different, and this is not I don't know, what is it, wool or cotton or maybe linen. This is silk. It looks like silk, and we see that somebody who was inspired by previous one, he didn't have this information about fabric and this and this and this. He just would like the pattern, and he would like to produce this pattern with another material, and actually it fits. It looks like it maybe silk, maybe synthetic, but it works. We just see different kind of approaches. Do you understand what I mean?
I do. I would probably translate it into feeling more fully the material which you deal with. Yes, like handwoven handmade things versus the printed things.
And sources are different. For example, I don't know, I can imagine, this is my imagination. Okay, somebody saw some flowers or some other fabric and combine it, and okay, I have this fabric and this dyeing stuff, so I can produce this. Is idea got through the process, and new fabric, it is like, oh, I have this pattern without thinking about background. I just would like to use it on with another fabric and make it more modern. Why I cannot use this? So this is thinking about the pattern more than background, something like this. For me, it's
Okay. Well, I had in mind a slightly different thing, but I'm not sure, should I like make everybody say, well, this is the main thing, because I'm very happy to see how you all managed to make discoveries about it, even though you've never seen it in real, you've just encountered first time this kind of image. I wanted rather to point out how, from artistic point of view, the artist who saw this treated the pattern. Deborah, you're raising your hand. You'd like to say something? Yes, sure.
Just because you just, I love how you phrase things, but because we're iconographers and we are trying to do something that draws a person in, the one on the left, it makes you want to touch it. It makes you want to, it looks soft and it draws you in because there's little, and the other one looks too perfect and hard, and it doesn't want me to just go and grab it because it's so perfect. You don't want to destroy the pattern. Does that make sense? Like with icons,
of course it does. Sure,
okay.
sure.
Yeah, so sorry, I just had to say that because
it's right to interrupt, because we are discussing it. It's again the question, we're trying to deal with visual, and we describe this visual from every possible point we can see. So that's right. The best part of brainstorming is that everybody would see things from different ways. And I'm happy to point it out. So yes, I'm with you, because this handwoven thing is more appealing than this perfectness of fabric design. And yet, I guess my proposal is not really, I don't know, huge and makes much difference, because yours are much more deep. The ones you all pointed out are more serious than mine, because they give more stereo view of the problem. Mine is just much more minor, and yet I wanted to point out the ratio between the size of the bigger parts of the pattern versus the smaller ones. So how big the bigger ones are versus the smaller one on the old one, if we compare this thing with the new one. I would say the new artist is trying to fill up the space much more evenly and with smaller pieces, smaller patterns, while the old one is not afraid of applying huge patterns connected with teeny tiny little heart form shapes. So that's for me the main and most interesting probably difference. Yes, and so I don't say other things are not valid, they are, but this for me is most artistic problem, because the one who produced the image on the left was thinking of juxtaposing the important central part versus the surrounding things. So it was a specific dialogue between very unequal parts. While what we see on the right, the amount of space occupied by little things and size of these little things begins much more competing with the bigger ones. So things are much more even, more boring, more equal. I should probably say more democratic, but that's not the case. So it's too plain to be interesting. And for me, that's what makes the difference between decorative art and the figurative art. Because the person who produced the image on the left was trying to produce a figurative art. You would first see the flowers, and then you would see the heart. So several steps, yeah, two different levels of perception. While when you look at the right, you immediately feel that everything wants to be in your eye. So this perception is taking you differently. Well, it's not very evident, But if you begin analyzing things how they were planned, he just wanted this to be 3 levels on the left, but on the right, it's all about the same importance, about the same amount of space occupying on the image. Well, okay, it's just me who would see it, and yet I'm thinking it is important. And I suggest we may probably show Alan, yes?
After your words, everybody see this. Everything starts to be obvious.
Well, okay, okay, I'm glad you may use it in the future, because I also see it after someone told me something, maybe in the past, but again, it's training our eyes. We feel that we are artists, but as any other professional, any skaters, any violin players, we need to continue training every day and to just keep ourselves on a level to be able to perceive things, to keep our perception fresh and, I don't know, functioning. Fresh and running. No. All right. Okay, let's move forward. So it's a question about choice. Yes, he or she chose to do it that way, and the person who made this one chose to do it this way. Get back to iconography, and let's connect the pattern to our professional things. And I just wanted to mention that we will speak about faces, as faces were the main subject of our latest course of Tempera. And this is not an icon, of course, it's from Saint Sophia in Constantinople, but it's one of the earliest examples of Christian iconography. And I would say for me, the main thing I see here is luminosity. So how bright it is, how much light we see in it. And it's probably the common quality of faces which we see in iconography. They are made to radiate light, light of faith, light of illumination. Somehow we feel them as very light entities. And in iconography, you would have to deal with paint, egg temper, or something else. So you would have to think of how to make your face luminous. And for many iconographers, as we learned at the course, it was the question of applying very transparent layer of paint. Here on the cheek, we see the cracks and scratches, but we see that the only color is between the viewer and the gesso is the skin tone. Yes, we don't see any dark color behind. Okay, under the eyes, we do see it. But here on the cheek and most of the areas which are supposed to be highlighted, we have nothing but the skin tone. So the transparency gives luminosity. This icon was painted in one of Georgian regions, also about 12th century. And we also see that he or she, this artist, only used some light color, and we see no dark shadows behind. Well, we see dark shadows on top, but yes, there is no dark sankir beneath. It's only the light color and the wood. So again, transparency plus the light colors. Well, sometimes luminosity is achieved this way, but sometimes we not only speak about luminosity, but about diversity too. Because in this case, we speak about a unique icon because different faces were painted with different methods. And the Mother of God evidently has a very different colors. As I see the blush, I may guess this iconographer didn't apply much highlight. Well, he probably had some under the eyes, but it wasn't heavily overpainted. So generally, we see the icon almost the way it used to look. And these two other faces look almost the way they used to look. And yet, they were not afraid of having them of two different colors. Who knows? Probably we have two different masters, but possibly it was the same master who simply applied the highlights and shadows differently to emphasize, I don't know, special role of the Mother of God. I don't know, and yet it is possible. It did happen, and there are other icons which show different colors developed for Mother of God and baby Jesus, for example. So it is possible. Luminosity or diversity via different colors on one icon. And yet, many times you would have faces not like here, very pale, but yet quite modest color. You would have colors very highlighted, so lots of white in this skin tone or highlights on top of skin tone. And in this case, I would say the idea was to connect the light shadow with a dark face, because this shadow is neither dark. Yes, we see the whole face as certain luminosity, and we see it as not being shaded at all. Yes, we only see the irises and the upper eyelids as dark points. Nothing else is dark. The whole face is light. That's what they wanted to share. Luminosity of face of baby Jesus. Sometimes it may be a different situation. You may need, or you may be forced, or may have to use stronger shadows. Like in this case, they wanted to emphasize the particular meaning of the scene, of the subject. They wanted to give more drama and impact of this particular icon to be different. And not only in the colors, but also in the way the brush strokes were applied. The artist made the transition between shadow and light, and yet we see the brush strokes. And probably because these brush strokes were required by the message. He or she didn't want to soften, to polish this transition, to make them smooth and perfect, as the message delivered by this icon could not be delivered by perfect transition. So it was necessary, obligatory, the best way to keep them rough, to keep them uneven, and in this way more appealing. So it couldn't be different. And in this image, I'm showing you a special type of icon where most of the head and hands are dark. It's almost black color. You see that his face has some highlights, and yet the overall feeling is a poor darkness. It's almost black. And in this case, there can be different thoughts. One of the thoughts is that the artist is trying to render the image of an earthly man who yet has some luminosity of heaven arriving upon his head, on his face. Alternative vision could be that this artist wanted to juxtapose the face to the lightness of gold, because the gold is so bright and so appealing that if you think of making the lighter face and light garment and light book and light everything, there will be nothing attracting your eye and catching your attention. So this artist probably had made the face dark on purpose for us to look at the face and not on the gold around it. That was probably his thinking process, and that how he or she solved the problem of destruction given by gold. We don't see much, but what we see captures our attention. And another method, which was practiced by people in Pskov and sometimes Novgorod, we see the highlights as very thin, teeny brushstrokes. I would say even that we can use the term like punch of light. Yes, I hit. They hit with these brushstrokes, only leaving few little, I don't know, traces of light. And yet we have this feeling of face being filled up with light, even though we only see 3 points or like 5 points. They do illuminate the face. They show the dramatic juxtaposition of darkness versus the light. So that was the decision of this artist who created this huge green background and with very little teeny tiny pieces coming right out of it. Why not? Another option. And moving forward, I wanted to show you this one as it's unusual because of the sun here or shadow color. It is gray. In other icons, sometimes I do see gray like that, but this probably is the most famous image. It's also in Tretyakov gallery. And I guess he has such a bright, such a, I don't know, luminous lips. Yet we have to remember this luminosity of the lips is connected to the garment because the garment was made in such a way that we really feel it appealing. It's bright. And the artist wanted or needed or has to make the lips connected with the garment. So yet again, the construction is very unusual. Dark gray background, luminous and pink skin tone with a lot of it. Yes, we have huge areas covered with pure white with a bit of pink. Very unusual. Another option. And this one was created, I guess, in Novgorod-on-Pskov, and we mostly see his face as dark one. So he had some highlights, but mainly this artist had left the ochre and other dark colors. So never covered the surface with highlights, but only few lines, only tiny traces of it, because there was some idea. And the blush is very, can I say, we have a lot of blush here, and there is a reason for it, because if you look at the whole image, you'll see a lot of red in this icon. I can show it after the lecture if you like me to, but this amount of blush is unusual, but it's not something strange. It's part of the whole image. It's a big icon, it's about 2 meters. And at the end here, I'm showing you Andrei Rublev, whom you probably have seen many times. And I can say it is beautiful compared to what we have seen. It probably is the most balanced, but not only one. This should not be ever considered as the only and the best option. It's one of them. Because the options always depend on circumstances. In some cases, you need this, in other cases, you need that. And I wanted to show this for you to feel free choosing the colors and tonal values. Because at the course, which Olga has taught and we have been teaching for months, we introduced our students to certain types of faces where we would have this pattern to follow and achieve this result, and this method to follow to achieve this result. But we did this on purpose to make things simple for learning. As we discussed it before, we limited our palette to as few pigments or colors as possible to diminish attention given to that, to increase the attention given to the main parts of the course. And yet, when you do yourself something, you're totally free of mixing whatever with whatever. So combine the colors, combine the methods. It's all up to you. We didn't want just students to think of too many things at once. But when you're by yourself, use any method, any color, and change them together. Combine them, juxtapose them, because anything can work if you make it work for a purpose. For a certain circumstances, for particular reason you need this, do it. But there has to be a thought behind your choice. Like if you're somewhere in the outskirts of Tbilisi, you're in a church which will be filled up with light, you have one kind of choices. you're forced to choose this, and that. If you are somewhere in a contemporary church having something totally different, you'll be having all different choices. So it's always a matter of dealing with your circumstances and finding the best solution for what you have on your plate. That's it. Thank you for your attention. Maybe too many images. Oh, let me stop recording.